Okay, great. Yeah, sorry. In the Shabbat season on weekday season, but then yes, the full one is 5:50. 2:14.
The Zoom stopped. I literally was just trying to get that message out of the way. Cool. Perfect.
Just start off at 1.
Sorry, I wasn't listening to page numbers 214. Hashrei yoshvei veitecha odilu chasela Hashem shechalo Hashem shadonai Elohav Deila David Ani v'lei melech Hashem v'lei b'kolim v'lei Hashem v'lei Yadu v'lei v'lei Tila Adonai daber pi v'yorech v'asar shem kod shalom v'ed v'anachnu v'arechiyam et havet olam hallelujah v'val tion goel shaveh fesher v'yakov v'neman amayim ani zovit yosam Kadosh, Shefti Israel, Kadosh Zelze, V'Amar, Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzavot, Melech Haaretz Kivodo. Hadizaini Ruach, V'Shmacharai Kol Rash Gadol, Baruch Kivod Adonai Mimkomor. Adonai Yimloch, Le'olam Va'ed, Adonai Mechotek Elam. Yiftechu B'cha Yodei Shemecha Ki lo azavta dorshecha Adonai Adonai chavetz leman ziko Yagdil Torah v'yadir. He must be doing it from the. He must be doing it wirelessly. So I think leave it alone because he's on it. There's a ghost. He kadal mi kada shemei rabba v'yamadi rak yirtei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayedecho b'Yisrael v'galav izman kariv v'yimru Amen Yehei shemei rabba barach v'olam u'me'amaya Yibarach v'yishtabach v'yipar v'yitaman v'yinaseh v'yidadar v'yitale v'yidalal shemei dekucha v'richu Leila bin kol birchata v'shirata Shish v'chata v'nechamata Damiran v'yalema v'imeru Amen V'ani tvilati lecha Adonai et ratzon Elohim merov chastecha Aneni v'emet yishecha Vayim to Aaron, Vayomer Moshe, Kum Adonai v'efutoi vecha, V'yanusu misanecha mipanecha, Ki mitzion detzei dorad, V'Adonai miYerushalayim, Baruch shenatan Torah l'olam, Mo Yisrael v'kedushato. Galu l'Adonai iti, V'neroma Hashemo yachdav, L'chadonai gdula, V'gvura v'tifer v'netzachel, Ki chol v'shamayim.
This is the famous parsha of Aaron's sons, or right after, really, Aaron's sons dying. Let me see if I can find a page for you.
It's too.
79.
Yeah, thank you. I turned to it as you said. Steve would like an aliyah. Anybody else like an aliyah? Kathy, you want one? No? Okay. Marshall? Larry? Okay. Brent, will you hagba us? Yes. AJ, will you galila? All the bases covered. Fantastic. Here we go. 679 in the Chumash. ותיגל לביתר מלכותון למזמור קרוב ויחון בדתני בלתת המבית לחנוך חסר רחמים ורצון מן המרמן הכבוד וכבוד לתורה יעמוד
Meir ben Eliezer Leib Bechana.
מאיר בן אליעזר לב וחנה אליה ראשון ברוש שנתן תורה למועצה בקדושתו ואתן בגן עליכם הן כולכם היום
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Olam. Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vaydeber Adonai Moshe Acharei Mon Shnei Bnei Aaron Bekabatam Lifnei Adonai Ve'almutu Vayam Adonai El Moshe Daber Aharon Ahicha Ve'yavol B'chol Eid El HaKodesh Mibeit LeParochet El Pnei HaKaporet Asher Al Haron V'lo Yamud Hiki Be'anan Yirael HaKaporet Bezo Yavol Aharon El HaKodesh Befar Ben Bakar Lachatat B'ayel Olam Kenochet Vad Kodesh Yilbash Mikesevat Yiyu Besaroho Ohanibat Yakor Misnefet Bat Itznov Bide Kodesh Chem Berachat B'mayim Et Besaro Levesham Umeyei Adat B'nei Yisrael Yikach Shnei Sirizim Lachatat V'ayel Lecha Lolaha V'hikriv Acharon Et Parchatan Asher Lo V'kaber Ado U'ad Beito
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Olam. Asher Natan Lanu Torat Emet V'chayei Olam Notah B'tochenu. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Ya'amod.
Leib Chaim Yehuda,
Leib Chaim Yehuda.
Ben Yitzchak v'Chiyana.
Ben Yitzchak v'Chiyana Lelia Sheni. Verse 7, page 680.
Baruch Adonai Varach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Barach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Hamim V'natan Lanu Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. V'lakach et shnei hesirim v'chalmin otam lifnei Adonai b'tach ochol memoed v'natan acharon v'shnei sirim v'rolon garal echad l'Adonai v'garal echad l'Azazel v'hikriv acharon et haseir asher alav garola l'Adonai v'yasu hatat Hasair, Asher Allah, Garola, Lazazel, Viamod, Lifne, Chai, Lifne Adonai, Vikiber Allah, Shalach, Ota, Lazel, Hamid Bara, Vihikri, Vacharon, Et Parachatan, Asher Lo, Vikiper Vado, Uvad Beto, Vishachad, Et Parachatan, Asher Lo.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Natan Lanu Torat Emet V'chayei Olam Notah B'tochenu. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Just so everybody knows, Marshall and Larry are the two aiding for getting our chametz back. So part of the reason that they're here is to make sure that we can do that, but also wanted to give them these honors of aliyot because of that holding that burden all week long. Okay, Steve, Ya'amod.
Zev Chaim.
Zev Chaim,
Ben Yehuda v'Chana.
Ben Yehuda v'Chana l'Aliyah Shlishi, verse 12, page 681.
ברכו את אדוני מבורך.
ברוך אדוני מבורך לעולם ועד.
מבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלינו מלך העולם אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Amen. V'chiber ado uv'ad beit. ולקח מלאך המקטן, כלי אש מעל המזבח מלפני אדוני, ומלאך אבניו כתורת סמים דקה, והביא מבית לפרוכת ונתן הכתורת על האש לפני אדוני, וכיסה ענן הכתורת את הכפורת אשר על העדות ולא ימות, ולקח מדם הפר וכיסה באצבעו על פני הכפורת לקדמה מלפני הכפורת יזה שבע פעמים מן הדם באצבעו ושחט את שעיר החטאת אשר לעם והביא את דמו אל מבית לפרוכת ועשה את דמו כאשר עשה לדם וכיפר וכפר וכיזה אותו לכפורת מלפני הכפורת וכיפר עלה הקודש מטומאות בני ישראל ומשכיהם לכל עתתם וכן יעשה לכל מועד השוכן אותם איתם בטומאתם וכל אדם לא הכיר באוכל מועד ובאו לכפר בקודש עד צאתו וקרבתו ובעד ביתו ועל ביתו כל חכם ישראל.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen.
Because we want to do an El Male, would you like to say anything about with your mother?
My mom, it's the 8th anniversary of her passing, and I'll speak about her when we can do El Males after Nisan.
Brent. Ya'amod ha'magbia ta'amod ha'golelet. Please rise. David, you want to just move that chair right here? Vezot ha'torah shesam Moshe livnei Yisrael al pi Adonai ve'yad Moshe. Eitz chaim hi lamachazikim ba v'tomechei ameu Eitz chaim hi lamachazikim ba v'tomechei ameu We'll turn back to our Sidurim, page 221, as David continues to put the Torah away. You can just take it, AJ, because he's going to put it away.
יהללו את שם אדוני, כי נשגב שמו לבדו, הדול ארץ ושמיים, וירם קרן לעמו, תהילה לכל חסידיו, לבני ישראל עם קרובו, הללויה.
שאו שערים ראשיכם ושאו פתחי עולם ויבוא מלך הכבוד סלה איי 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 נה 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 איי 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 איי
כי לקח טוב נתתי לכם, תורתי אל תעזובו, עץ חיים מלמעלה חזיקים בה, ותומכי המאושר, דרך ערך נועם, וכל נתיבותיה שלום, השיבנו אלי אליך ונשובה, חדש ימינו כהרף.
As the ark is closed, we're going to turn to the whispered Amidah, which in the Lev Shalem can be found on page 306. If you're in Sidur Sim Shalom, it's on page 242. And the weekday Sim Shalom is page 184, and the full volume Sim Shalom is on page 586. Just remember that we add additions both for Shabbat and for Pesach.
יקרא ויקדש שמי רבה, ואמן יברקותי, וימליך מלכותי, וחייכון ויומךו. חייכו בית ישראל, בגלה בזמן קריב, ואמרו, אמן, יהי שמי רב מברך, לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה. יברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי קודשה בריחו, לעילה מן כל ברכתה, ושירתה, תשבחתה ונחמתה. Damiran be'alma v'imru amen. כי שם אדוני קרב וגוד אלוהינו, אדוני שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, אלוהי אברהם, אלוהי יצחק ואלוהי יעקב, אלוהי שרה, אלוהי רבקה, אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה, האל הגדול הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות, ומביא גואל לבני בניהם, למען שמו ביאהבה, מלך חוזר ומשיח ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה מתים אתה רב להושיע, מוריד אתה, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיה מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נובלים ורופא חולים ומתיר אסורים, מקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה מצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות מתים, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיה המתים. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, כך כתוב היה נביאך וקרא זה אל זה ואמר. קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלך על הארץ כבודו, לעומתם ברוך יאמרו. ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו, דברי קודשך כתוב לאמור. ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לימוש לעולם ועד, כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. אתה בחרתנו מכל העמים, אהבת אותנו ורצית בנו, ורוממתנו מכל לשונות, וקידשתנו מצוותיך, וקירבתנו מלכינו לעבודתך, בשמך גדול הקדוש, עלינו קראת. ותיתן לנו אדוני אלוהינו מאהבה, שבתות למנוחה ומועדים לשמחה, חגים וזמנים לששון, את יום השבת הזה ואת יום חג המצות הזה, זמן חירותנו מאהבה מקרא קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, יעלה ויבוא ויגיע, ויראה וירצה וישמע, ויפקד ויזכר זיכרון לפקדוננו, וזיכרון אבותינו, וזיכרון משיח בן דוד עבדך, וזיכרון ירושלים עיר קודשך, וזיכרון כל עמך בית ישראל לפניך, לפליטה לטובה, לחן ולחסד ורחמים, לחיים ולשלום ביום חג המצות הזה. זוכרנו אדוני אלוהינו בו לטובה, ופוקדנו בו לברכה, והושיענו בו לחיים. ובדבר ישועה ורחמים חוס וחוננו, ורחם עלינו והושיענו, כי אליך עינינו, כי המלך חנון ורחום אתה. ועשיינו אדוני אלוהינו ברכה מועדיך לחיים ושלום, לשמחה ולששון, גשר רצית, ואמרת לברכנו, אלוהינו ולאבותינו ארצי ומנוחתנו, קדשנו מצוותיך ותן חלקנו בתורתך, שבענו מטובך ושמחנו משועתך, ותאר ליבנו לעובדך באמת, והנחילנו אדוני אלוהינו מאהבה ורצון, בשמחה וששון, שבת ומועדי קודשך, וישמחו בך ישראל, מקדשי שמך, ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדש השבת וישראל, והזמנים. רצה אדוני אלוהינו עמך ישראל ובתפילתם, ושבת עבודה לדבר ביתך, תפילתם יאהבה תקבל ברצון, ותהי לרצון תמיד, עבודת ישראל עמך, ותחזן עינינו, בשובך לציון ברחמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, המחזיר שכינתו לציון. מודים אנחנו לך, שאתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו, ולמד צורכינו מאלוהינו ולאבותינו, ולך נשא ברכתך, חיינו, שרינו לשמותינו, וכן נצא חשבון, ונקודך, תורתך, שפלוי, הרבו קרב צהריים. הטוב כי לא חלו רחמך ומרחם כי לא תמו חסדיך מעולם קיווינו לך מעל כולם יתברך ויתרומם שמך מלכנו תמיד לעולם ועד בכל החיים יודוך סלע ויהללו את שמך באמת האל ישועתנו ועזרתנו סלע ברוך אתה אדוני הטוב שמך וחנאי להודו. שלום רב על ישראל עמך וכל יושבי תבל תשים לעולם כי אתה הוא מלך אדון לכל השלום וטוב בעיניך וברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך ברוך אתה אדוני המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום. Full Kaddish is 2:30 in Lev Shalem, 2:47 in Slim Shalom. יתגדל ויקדש שמי רבה, אמן מלמד יברך קראתי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וימכון וחיי לכל בית ישראל פגע לה בזמן קריב ואמרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם לעלמי עלמיה יברך וישתבח וידבר וידרום וינשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי לקודשה בריחו לעילם מכל ברכתה ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה דמירן מעלמם ואמרו אמן תתקבל צלדון ובעודון לכל ישראל קודם ובני ושמיה ואמרו אמן יהי שלום רב מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל לתת גאולה לתת בראשית שלו עשה לגר בארצה. כתוב בתורתך אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. קדישה תום יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה בעלמא דברה קירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומכון וחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מברך לעולם עולמי עלמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן יהי שלום הרבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן.
Koach to David and to Barry for reading Torah. We're going to take a few moments to get some food. It's slim pickings over here, but if you would like to say motzi to fulfill the mitzvah of Seudah Shlishit, there is matzah. There are also cookies and fruit. So eat whatever you would like, and we'll come back together in about 7-ish minutes so that Julia can start her teaching. And then we will do Birkat and Mariv. You're so welcome. There was supposed to be tuna, but I don't see it.
Gary and Marlise?
Yes, hi.
Hi, it was lovely. It was lovely seeing you at shul this morning, or for me this afternoon, but for you, because they're doing a different camera angle. And so I could see you in the row, and I assume it was your kids at home watching you. because they were
The
on
main
it.
thing, the main thing is, yeah, we were in the right place at the right time. We
Yeah.
sat behind the camera, in front of the camera.
Thank you, Tyler.
Yeah. So just do this, and then go, and then do this. You just say Veki Noam, and then Ephraimi. And then you'll go to Kaddish Shalem, and then Elena. Don't go back to this. No, we won't do that today. Yeah. So I do Hatzi Kaddish after the Amidah. And then I do. You just say this first line of Veki Noam, and then say this all silently. And then if you want, you can just do the last line, but it starts here. Yeah. But if you want to just do the last line, you can. It was good. It was you know, work, but but the last days were nice. Yeah, but one of the sitters was here. Yeah. But it was good. It was really good. It's just, you know, when you're a rabbi, it's work. Yeah. But it was very nice. It was a nice kind of Sabbath over. Like the next thing is.
Hogs always work better when they're on weekends.
Yeah.
For the working folks. I'm just saying, I still would prefer when people are running Shana Shabbat.
Yeah.
Anytime you come on Saturday or Sunday.
Sure. Yeah. I get them.
Highlights. The only way you can read your small print.
It's not my small print.
But when you print this out, it doesn't print out.
See if I can get you all things.
It's all right because it's fine. That's the more interesting one.
Right.
That's it.
That makes every month better. They don't want to give you anything too good. Then you might miss it.
At my parents' house? No, I mean, I was there whatever first podcast was that Sunday. I was there last week. Yeah.
Funny we're just similar logic to mine. The spirit is already here. The angels are already around. I think that's the thing is that you're not going to straight Shabbat. You're still in the Kodesh. How are you getting behind me? This is an explanation regarding
All right, everyone. We are going to start, or Julia is really going to start in just a second. Before Julia begins, I just want to make an announcement about the next few Shabbat Mincha slots between now and Shavuot. The clergy are going to be teaching a Hartman curriculum that is going to kind of lead us into Shavuot, and then the last part of that curriculum will be what we do as our main plenary for the Tikkun Leil Shavuot. So for the next however many weeks in between, we're taking one as a break, so I think it's 5. In between now and the Tikkun, we will be doing this Hartman curriculum. So if you'd like to come for each one of them, you're obviously more than welcome to. You don't need to come to each one to understand the next one. So though they're in a series, it's not as if you will not know material if you come to the next one. And one of the teachings will be done actually at the Shabbaton. So for those of you who don't go on the Shabbaton, we'll make sure to record it so that people can hear it on the podcast at another time. That being said, we wanted to make sure that Julia got to teach her last poetry class. So we're having her do that today. The TBA Family Shabbaton, which is May 13th through 15th. Yeah. All right.
Hello, everyone. Oh, where's my Siddur? Oh, okay. I will need it. So this is the last poetry Seudah Shlishi class, at least in my capacity as one of the residents. I was like thinking, what am I gonna do? Because I always kind of wanted to link it to the Parsha, and in a way I'm doing it, but I'm linking it to the Haftarah. Because I recently, I've known about this book for a while, but I hadn't read it until just recently. It's from Avia Kushna, and she's her full-length collection is Wolf, Lamb, Bomb, and if you listen to the Haftarah today, it is a quote from Isaiah. And the whole book is basically a meditation on the poetry of Isaiah, and every poem in this book explores one or more passages from the book of Isaiah. So that's why I chose this, and the wolf lamb passage is one that we read this morning in the Haftarah, and there are many other famous passages in the Haftarah. For example, Vayatza choter mi geza Yishai, but a shoot shall grow out of stump of Jesse. And obviously, Hine el Yeshuati, and all the following lines that we are going to sing very soon to say goodbye to this festival. And Vayaga ze'ev im kevesh, the wolf will dwell with the lamb. That is also echoed in a later passage in Isaiah again. Before, we are going to read a few poems by Avia, she wrote, the first book I read from her it's not a poetry book, it's actually called The Grammar of God, and it came out, I don't know, a couple of years ago, not like a handful of years ago, and in which she explores, because she grew up speaking Hebrew somewhere on the East Coast, and it sort of like tracks how she explored when she started going, like having Jewish studies or whatever, and she didn't recognize the Torah and the Tanakh that she knew from her childhood when she was hearing it in English translation for the first time. So the book is sort of like how she explores the Hebrew and the English. And she has another poetry collection out. I think she teaches at Columbia College, Chicago, and this book has been picked up a lot and reviewed a lot, and I really highly recommend it. It's very good. But before, we're going to read some of the poems in it, and we're only going to read one of the poems on the source sheet, because when I had to prepare the source sheet, I hadn't yet the book in my hands, so And I had to send it in a day before the book arrived. So we're going to look at one poem, which is Rumor, but also a few others that like really explore lines from the Haftarah we heard today, because I thought it's a nice way of sort of like saying goodbye to Pesach and sort of like having a connection to what we were reading this morning. Isaiah obviously is a prophet famous for his poetry, but also for his insistence on envisioning a messianic landscape, an eschatological utopian natural state ideal, after the haughty have been judged and brought low, and justice has been bestowed on those deserving, and unity and peace have been established. He's also the prophet from which emerging Christians quoted most often, because they found in his words passages and images that worked well in their attempt to find proof text for Jesus as a Messiah. And many of these lines have often been used to those means. But Isaiah obviously wrote many centuries before the emergence of Christianity. And is also the prophet whose Haftarah was chosen for Pesach, which is one of our, if we want the beginning of our national story, our redemption story. So I was wondering why this Haftarah might have been chosen for the 8th day of Pesach. There is obviously a line in it that says, "There shall be a highway for the other part of his people out of Assyria, such as there was for Israel when it left the land of Egypt." So there is a clear connection to Pesach. But I think it's also because Pesach is a moment of redemption. I want to say it's a moment. It's not the redemption, because it only starts there, right? And Isaiah, for all his wrath and outrage at injustice and arrogance and greed and fake kindness and corruption, is also the prophet of comfort, of reconciliation, of the ingathering of exiles, and the prophet of redemption. He speaks to our Israelite and Judean ancestors and conjures up the finishing line of the long journey that we've just begun, again, as every year. The journey toward redemption, or the redemptive journey through the Sea of Reed, through the desert, toward the Promised Land. We are liberated, we're taken out of Egypt, but we're not yet redeemed. And he is the prophet who dreams up a time when wolf and lamb will dwell together peacefully, and when a wolf is not disguised as a lamb, or a lamb poses as a wolf. But how long can such a time really last before the next bomb explodes? Either here or in New York, in Jerusalem, which many of these poems go back and forth between what's happening in these two cities, in Ukraine, or wherever bombs explode at all times. So this question is like, wolf and lamb is all great. It's all peace and it's beautiful. And I think we've all been for the past 8 days in moments where we sort of like talked a lot about this and what does that mean and how can we achieve it. But then there's this third word, is bomb. And so this question she explores in this collection in poems that are all in dialogue with Isaiah. And basically every poem is inspired, as I said before, by several lines from his prophecies, and challenges it, rephrases, questions, admires. And it's a very interesting discourse between a modern poet, a woman in her, I don't know, she's in her late 40s, probably early 50s, and Isaiah, the prophet from 2,500 years ago. And it's so interesting. Often we write, we hear and talk about how prophecy and poetry overlap. And in this book, we really get a sense of how this echoes and works. So yes, so before we're going to like talk, and this is a little different than I've been doing it the past times, but there was just so much I've been thinking about Pesach and the Haftarah and poetry and prophecy, so it's more of a like extended drash of sorts. But we are going to like go around and have like a few, if people want to say something at the end of once we've read the last poem, Rumor. So just to give you. There is another passage that she deals with in this book that is also in the Haftarah, which is translated in the Etz Chaim. It starts at 11:2, after the shoot that grows out of the stump of Jesse. The Spirit of the Lord shall alight upon him, a spirit of wisdom and insight, a spirit of counsel and valor, a spirit of devotion and reverence for the Lord. And spirit, ruach, obviously, is the word that plays between wind and spirit. And so the poem that I'm going to read is The Wind. How can I explain the wind to you? It flutters, it flirts with the water in the opening lines of Genesis. And then it comes back, the way everything important comes back, but as the wind of wisdom, the wind of God, the wind of understanding. Spirit, you say. You're explaining the Spirit of God. Not exactly. I want to hold your hand and explain it to you softly. Ruach. Listen to how the wind has ooh and ah in it. More than air, that wind on water fluttering. Not just God, but something of God, like man, like woman, like the world. So my apologies again, I don't have it in front of you, but it's like as a reading, something usually sticks. As most of you know, I also write poems, and I do think that in order to write good and deep poetry, we also need to really question skeptically and honestly and challenge the world around us. And she does that, and she does that in this entire book. This is more of a meditative sort of kind of dialogue with Isaiah, but she has another one, like many others in this book. That, yeah.
The poem you just read is specifically referencing the verses
Yes.
from the Haftarah today?
Yes. I mean, there are literally in the Haftarah also. I mean, the spirit. What she's referencing is the spirit.
But the Ruach and the Haftarah is specifically referring to a Ruach where a spirit is being placed on this leader.
Mm-hmm.
All the attributes that the leader is supposed to be absorbing
Mm-hmm.
when touched by the divine spirit. I didn't hear that in the poem at all.
Well, then she didn't speak to you then. To me, it was pretty obvious in how she, you know, sometimes it's more obvious and sometimes it's less obvious. In this case, I think she talks about spirit, the Spirit of God. You're explaining the Spirit of God, which is exactly basically what you were saying, being touched by the Spirit. But
Isaiah is very clear here. Isaiah is talking about what's going to happen after the redemption. And
right.
the leader's going to come from the house of Jesse, going to come to understand the Davidic line. And this leader, whether the leader is going to be a king or a prophet or a priest, whatever, a political leader or a spiritual leader, these are the attributes that God needs to imbue the leader with. Wisdom, valor,
spirit of devotion and reverence for the Lord.
But it's not for the rest of us specifically here. This is what we want our leaders to embody.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, if that's the beauty or the annoyance sometimes of poetry is that sometimes you can say I can look at it in different ways and then it makes sense, and sometimes it just doesn't work for one. I think that in the leader, it's not so important whether it is when it's like an adaptation from a book into a movie. You take out certain things and you're stuck with like one line that sort of is going to become the founding, the skeleton for what you're going to make out of that. And that may sometimes work for one and sometimes it doesn't.
I think the poet has to work with that. What the shot of Isaiah and was inspired in some way by that ruach, but it's only relative to the leader, as I explained,
right.
and has wiped it out because it struck her as something that might be relevant to everybody, not just the leader. So I think that she has, not used it in the way that the shot of the text does, but has broadened it out.
Yeah, thank you. I think that was better summed up than I would have done it. So, right, yeah. And it's more an exploration of the concept spirit or ruach in that, rather than she's not so interested in the leader in that poem. Yeah, and it's interesting in the trope too. Like every ruach has a different trope to it, which really speaks to that what you were saying in terms of how it changes and how it, yeah. I do want to talk about the rumor, so I'm going to skip the poem that you guys don't have in we said 45 for Birkat? Yep. So I'm going to skip that one. We don't have it in front of you. Anyway, because I do want to wrap it up with some thoughts on the last day of Pesach in the diaspora. As Rabbi Klickfeld was saying today and reminding us when we're counting the Omer, we are completing the first week of the Omer in the Sephirah of Chesed, and we are in Malchut Shebe Chesed. And very soon, after Mariv, we're counting the Omer again, and we will enter week 2, which is the Sephirah Gevurah. And we will be Chesed Shebe Gevurah, love, faith, loyalty, kindness, and strength and judgment, however you want to translate that. And I think we need to remember the royal completeness of Chesed of the first week of Pesach as we leave the shelter of the festival. And I know that many of you can't wait to sink your teeth into a pizza or a bagel, but I personally always find it a little bit sad to leave the ecstatic first days of peace and love and prayer on our journey towards redemption behind. The time of our freedom, the beginning of our redemption, the moment of our salvation, not in the Christian sense, but Hine Yeshuati, Yeshuatenu, in the sense of something good having happened to us miraculously without us having done anything for it. Like in a moment in time with a person we love, which is like a spark of redemption. And that's why I think it's good to begin the journey through the desert with Isaiah's comforting voice echoing in the wind. And also with this poem, Rumor, that it is in fact very small to read. I had not even tried it, but I thankfully have it here. And this is Rumor. There's a crazy man in those hills, howling that he can comfort us all. There's an old crazy man in all of us, saying, I raised you, made you tall, and you rebellious little wuss. You forgot that an ox knows who owns him, an ass knows his place. Rain falls and we rain blame the way our ancestors rained blame. Bombs explode in a faraway city where I once lived, and the world rains its curses on man, on God, on the whole idea of I will be what I will be, I am what I am. Forget tenses, because I am past and present and future, and I breathed you into you. Listen, someone once said, I am comforting you, breathing through an old, towering prophet who is nothing but a singer on a stage, a singer when there's only one light left, and the soft illusion of a face. In a few years, you too will be just rumor, a fire, dry grass, a singer who sang and then disappeared from the lilt of performance, the light of the audience, the light of the world, a balm to the crazy, the rebel, the wuss, Isaiah to the nations of the earth. Like the tale of an old crazy man in the hills, a song and a howl, a wolf and a lamb, a story everyone claims. I thought it's a good poem to end the reflections on Isaiah, but also as we end this week that is the first week of our redemption story that keeps continuing and continuing. And I want to invite more reactions to this poem. Criticisms, rejections, or other thoughts? Yeah. I find this, I will say, David and I are in the same class, going through all of Nach in one semester. And even though there's obviously not much time left to really sit with these things, what I've been finding really interesting over those months is how close they feel, how close these prophets feel. Like they say things and they make comparisons and metaphors that obviously to us modern sometimes it's not what we would say. But in terms of the more I read of them, the more I feel like they're like so close, and they had the same sort of fears and desires and urges and passions, and I mean in a very extensive way sometimes, of course. But what she does here in this poem and what she does in this entire book, I feel, is she really brings him into the room as like a guy from 2,500 years ago. But yeah.
I got the impression that, I said myself, I had to be 60 years old to see a poem that referred to myself as you rebellious little wuss. I don't think that she says much about the good of man in this particular thing. That essentially we get full of ourselves. We think we can make a big difference, but essentially we're not that much different than the ox that's commanded and the cow that's commanded. We like to think that we are, but we're really not. And we think that we make a difference, 34 years of law practice and being a rabbi or whatever, but the reality is she's reminding us that we too will be, remembered as someone who said something but not really making a difference.
Mm.
And in terms of Isaiah, I think in part, was he the one who said swords in the plowshares or something like that?
Yep. He also said that the beast doesn't remember remembers his.
The ultimate enemy of man is war itself. That we can war ourselves into non-existence.
Yeah.
And that's the real fear, that the ultimate enemy of man is war. And that's in part what I think she's saying, is that we think that we can make the world, we hope we can make the world a better place, but in many respects, we go the way of the ox and the cow.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Any concluding thoughts?
Judy, where do you see the connection here between this poem and leaving Pesach? Make it explicit. I don't see it.
I think I said that in general, I just wanted to have a connection to Isaiah in general, which is why I picked these poems. And I think what I said in my remarks about how during Pesach we are very close to imagining the wolf and the lamb dwelling together, and because it is the beginning of redemption, because I mean, whatever. Like Pesach is the festival, most of all, of liberation. Obviously, it starts the journey towards redemption, but it's a journey, and we don't get there. And I think it is the beginning of it. And so, I think while I thought it fit, I chose the poems because they were dealing with the wolf and lamb, because they had the Haftorah, because of the Haftorah line in it. But I do think it is a nice ending in terms of a story everyone claims, because Pesach is, as we've probably discussed on each of our Seders a lot, the story of telling, the Magid, the questioning, the what remains, where are we going to, and what echoes, and who is bringing the redemption. Is it God who saves us? Is it us who are going to work towards redemption? So when this was one of the poems that had the wolf and the lamb line in it, and ends on the story that everyone claims and that everyone tells differently, I thought it was a nice note to end on. It's obviously not like the one Pesach poem that one would pick in a different sort of setting, but with this sort of aim to have a short wrap up, and I thought it was a good fit.
I think that you can still, sorry, Kathy. I was just gonna say that I think the line, I don't know
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, which is this whole like duality between what's often translated as salvation and here not, it's always deliverance, but like this the yud shin ayin words and the gimel aleph lamed words, salvation, redemption, and somewhere in between is the path through the sea of reeds. And with that, Barry. Yeah, that was hearkening to. Yeah, I mean, and that's the beauty I find. That's a personal thing, of course, about poetry more than maybe prose, because people ask questions as we ask at our Seder, and Larry was saying he doesn't see it, and that made me think more and phrase and like think more than what I had, like a diffuse feeling when I picked it, and then look at the whole conversation that happened. So thank you, because when we ask questions, as we have done at the Seder, and many of us have been doing it for many years, and every time it's an interesting conversation. Yeah, shakor to every one of you. Thank you. Someone needs to do birkat. I haven't done it.
Great. So Joey, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do Shir Hamal, and then we'll do the Ziva, but then we're gonna do it with that. Great. I think it's okay. Okay. But you can go stand up there if you want. Okay.
Shir Hamalo Peshuv Adonai Achivat Zion Hainu Kecholamim Az Yamale Sechok Pinu Ul Shonenu Rina Az Yomeruva Goyim Igdil Adonai Lasoti Mele Igdil Adonai Lasoti Manu Hainu Semechim Shuva Adonai et Shavitenu Ka'afikim Ba'negev Hazorim Bedima Berina Iktoru Halof Yelechu Vacho No Se Meshech Hazara Bo Yavo Verina No Se Alumotav Tehilat Adonai Yadaber Pi Vibarech Kol Basar Shem Kushul Olam Ba'ed Ba'anachnu Nivarech Yah Me'ata V'ad Olam Hallelujah Hodu Adonai Ki Tov Ki Le'olam Chasto Mi Emal El Gevurot Adonai Yashmiya Kol Tehilato Chave Rein Varech Yehi Shem Adonai Mevorach Me'atav V'ad Olam B'Yirshut Chavirai Nevrech Elohinu Shechal Nemi Shelo Baruch Elohinu Shechal Nemi Shelo Tuvo Chayinu Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Hazan et HaOlam Kulo B'Tuvo B'chein B'Chesed U'Vrachamim Hu notein lechem l'chol basar ki le'olam chasto Uvtuvo Hagadol. Tamid Luchasar Lanu Ve'ayachsar Lanu Mazon Lilam Va'ed Bavur Shemo Hagadol Kiwelzan Farnes Lakol Umetiv Lakol Umechin Mazon Lechol Beriotav Asher Bara Baruch Atah Adonai Hazan et Hakol Baruch Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam.
Yasher Koach, Joey. We'll continue with Mariv on page 264. If you're in a Sim Shalom, it's on page 281 or 137, or if you're in the full volume Sim Shalom, it's on page 200. If you're able to do so, please rise. Joey, are these your glasses? No. Okay, great. Please rise.
והוא רחום יכפר עוון ולא יחשיד, והיא באה להשיבה פה ולא יהיה כל המצור, אדוני הושיע המלך יננו ויום קוראנו. ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני. ומעביר יום ומביא לילה ומפטיר בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו. החי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה אדוני המעריף הרבים, אהבת עולם בית ישראל עמך. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו, ובהם נגה יומם ולילה, ואהבת אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. ומלכותו ברצו קיבלו עליהם משה ובני ישראל הלחן ושירה ושמחה רבה ואמרו כולם מי כמוך באלים אדוני מי כמוך נדב הקודש נורתי לא תוסף אליהם מלכותך ראו בניך פוקע ים לפני משה זה עליינו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. ושמות צאתנו ובואנו לחיים ולשלום מעתה ועד עולם ברוך אתה אדוני שומע עמו ישראל לעד. כי המלכות שלך היא לעולמי עד תמלוך בכבוד כי אין לנו מלך אלא אתה ברוך אתה אדוני המלך בכבודו תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד ועל כל מעשיו. יקרא ויתקדש שמי רבה ועמד דברי חיותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומכון ופעל לכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי לקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תאמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. יתגדל ויתגדש שמי רבם, בעלמא יברך יוטה וימליך מלכותה, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי לכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבם מבורך לעולם ולמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתקומם ויתנשא, ויתהדה ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה בריחו, לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תאמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. ויהי נאמן אדוני אלוהינו עלינו מעשה ידינו כוננה עלינו ומעשיו ידינו כוננו. יושב בסדר. אורך ימים אשביעהו ואראה בישועתי. קדיש שלם. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבם, בעלמא יברך יוטה וימליך מלכותה, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי לכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבם מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתקומם ויתנשא, ויתהדה ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה בריחו, לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תאמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. תתקבל צילותון ובאותון לכל ישראל קדם אבון דבשמיא ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבא מן שמיא וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל. ככתוב בתורתך אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. Are we doing Omer?
Yeah. Let's finish. I've had 3 people ask me that. Let's finish Mari. We'll do the Omer and then we'll do the
Oh, okay. So we're doing Kadishatam. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבם, בעלמא דברה קירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי לכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבא מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתקומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה בריחו, לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תאמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבא מן שמיא וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. Yes, so we're going to count the Omer, which is on page 63 in the left Shalem, and after that we're continuing on page 65. Do I start with Hineni? Should I do? Yeah. Hineni muchana, Hineni muchana, Hineni muchara, ומזומן ומזומנת לקיים מצוות עשה של ספירת האומר, כמו שכתוב בתורה. וספרתם לכם, I never said it out loud, actually, ואכלתם שבת מהיום הציוויתן את אומר התנופת 7 שבועות. תמיתום תהיינו עד ממחרתה השבת השביעית תספורת השמיים מיום. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותיו וציוונו על ספירת האומר. היום 8 ימים שהם שבוע אחד ויום אחד לאומר. No, right?
No, that was great. Now we're gonna do Havdalah.
Oh, yes.
But let me just.
Which is on page 283. יפתח ולא אפחת, כי אני זה זמרת אדוני ויהי לי לישועה, ושבתם מרעים בששון, ממעיין הישועה, לאדוני הישועה, על עמך וחתך סלע, אדוני צבאות עמנו, משגב לנו אלוהי יעקב סלע, אדוני צבאות, אשרי אדם בוטח בך, אדוני הושיע, המלך יעננו ביום קורנו ליהודים, הייתה אורה ושמחה בששון, כך כן תהיה לנו כוס ישועות אשא, ובשם אדוני אקרא, יאי די די יאי די 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 יאי די די יאי די די.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei minei vesamim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei miorei ha'esh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamavdil bein kodesh lechol bein or lechoshech bein Yisrael le'ami bein yom hashvi'i le'sheshet yamei hamaseh. Baruch atah Adonai hamavdil bein kodesh lechol המבדיל בין קודש לחום, חטאותינו ימחום, זרענו וחסדנו יביע מלכות, הכוכבים בלילה. זרענו וחסדנו יביע מלכות, הכוכבים בלילה. שבוע טוב, שבוע טוב, שבוע טוב. Shavua tov, Shavua tov, Shavua tov, Shavua tov, Shavua tov. Eliyahu hanavi, Eliyahu hatishbi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu agiladi, bimera veyamenu, Mashiach ben David, Mashiach ben David. Shavua Tov, everyone. Eshar koach to Julia for beautiful teaching and Mariv. In about 5-ish minutes, you will be able to eat your chametz, and I hope that it is tasty. But as Julia said, I hope that we're all still able to take a little bit of the beauty of this past week and bring it into the next week with us. See you all soon. Shavua Tov. All right.
Conclusion of the series.
I know.
That's crazy. Everything's flying.
Yeah, that one that you didn't read is really done.
Yeah.
All right, well, if you would like to see how to get some comments back.
just the place.